and paid for it with humiliation, betrayal, the Renaissance version of being verified and sponsored overnight. That was political suicide. He was modern, he was arrogant, and most dangerously, he was popular. Today we are following the life of a man who changed our understanding of the universe and paid for it with humiliation, betrayal, and one of the most controversial trials in history. Galileo Galilei, born in Pisa, adored in Florence, condemned in Rome, and forever trapped between science and faith. Beyond the textbooks, though, Galileo's life was full of rivalries, political games, and the secrets the church has been trying very hard to bury. Before we begin, guys, don't forget to subscribe if you are not subscribed yet and hit the bell button down below. Also, please make sure to like and comment this video, because the more you like and comment my videos, more people who love history and want to learn all these illustrious stories can find my videos. And if you love my content and want to support us, you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee. Thank you so much to everyone who's already donated to our channel. You can do so by hitting the thanks button down below or by buying a cup of coffee through a link in the description box. So thank you so much. I am having this cup of coffee thanks to you guys, and then we are proceeding to explore Galileo's story. Galileo was born here in Pisa in 1564, in a family of musicians, philosophers, intellectuals, but they were absolutely unprepared to raise a future scientific troublemaker. Galileo often attended the cathedral both as a child and as a teenager, and according to some later sources, once in his teenage years, sitting there, he noticed the chandelier swaying gently after being lit. No wind, no earthquake, just movement. And from that tiny observation started a lifetime of asking the question that made him dangerous. But what if we are wrong about all of this? Then comes the famous story, a legend actually, but beloved, of Galileo climbing up the Leaning Tower and dropping two spheres of different ways to prove Aristotle wrong. Whether he climbed it or not, his work back at the time was already poking holes in the old ideas the church considered safe. Florence is where Galileo truly became Galileo as we know him today. In 1610, he published his Sidereus Nuncius, his book, his work, where he reported everything he saw with his improved telescope, including the Jupiter's moons and the mountains on the moon that he then sketched and painted with watercolor later. Cosimo II de' Medici hired him as the court mathematician and philosopher, basically a Renaissance version of being verified and sponsored overnight. But there was a problem. Galileo didn't just use his telescope to look at the sky, he used it to challenge centuries of accepted beliefs. He openly supported Copernicus, saying that the Earth moved, that it wasn't the center of the universe. And back in the early 17th century, this was not just a scientific idea. This was literally a theological grenade. Here in 1614, inside this church, the things took a dramatic turn. A Dominican friar, Tommaso Caccini, staying here on the pulpit, delivered a sermon in which he attacked the Copernican ideas as heretical and dangerous. Even though Galileo wasn't physically present during the Mass, of course he was affected. His name was dragged straight into the fire because Galileo was notorious for defending his ideas, and he wrote at least 2 letters in which he argued that scripture should not dictate science. One is his famous letter to his friend Benedetto Castelli, and another 2 years later in 1615 to the Duchess Christina. To theologians like Caccini, Galileo wasn't just wrong. He was modern, he was arrogant, and most dangerously, he was popular. In 1615, the friars of San Marco here in Florence took things further. They got into possession of a private letter of Galileo, one meant for discussion among friends, and sent it straight to the Roman Inquisition. The accusation that Galileo was teaching things that smelled strongly of heresy. In 1616, the church formally condemned the heliocentric theory as heretical. Galileo wasn't put on trial yet, but he received a formal warning. Stop writing about Copernicus, stop teaching about Copernicus, stop supporting Copernicus. Galileo obeyed the warning for a few years, but then he wrote and published the book that sealed his fate. Dialogo sopra I due massimi sistemi del mondo, a book published right here in Florence in 1632. It presented a debate between 2 men, one defending the geocentric worldview and the other defending the heliocentric one. But the problem was that the man defending the old worldview was written, let's say, not particularly intelligently. Many saw him as a caricature of the Pope. That was political suicide. The book was banned immediately, Galileo was summoned to Rome, and the trial, taking place in 1633, was inevitable. But it was not truly about science. It was about obedience, and everybody knew that. Under pressure and probably fearing torture, Galileo recanted. He famously muttered, "Eppur si muove," and yet it moves, although historians believe that this phrase was invented later, and yet it still defines his legacy today, the drama of that moment. Galileo was condemned to kind of an exile. He was forced to spend his last years close at home after publicly apologizing for his ideas and for defending them. He spent the rest of his days here in Florence, inside his home, and almost forgotten, but not by everyone. Of course, his students remembered him, and the Medici family, though supporting him, could not do anything against the Inquisition. When Galileo died in 1642, the church refused him a proper burial. He was placed near the bell tower of Santa Croce in a small quiet room, almost hidden, almost shameful. A magnificent tomb was planned for Galileo here, but the church said absolutely not. You cannot honor a man condemned for heresy. Galileo's student Vincenzo Viviani fought for years for a proper burial place, for a proper tomb for his teacher, but the resistance was too strong. Only a century later, the tomb was finally completed and Galileo's remains were moved here to the tomb that we see today. And when they opened his old burial place, they found not one body, but three. Galileo's devout student Viviani was buried beside him, but there was also a woman's body. Many believe it was the remains of Galileo's daughter, Suor Maria Celeste. But this became the final mystery of Galileo's life. Galileo's story is messy, political, human, and full of contradictions. He was brilliant, stubborn, charismatic, often infuriating, but he was never afraid to question the world around him. And he paid the price for it, but his ideas survived. Thank you so much for watching this video and walking this chapter of Italian history with me, discovering more about this absolutely fascinating human, absolutely fascinating scientist. Once again, I remind you to subscribe to my channel. If you're not subscribed yet, like and comment this video, and I will see you next week with a new story.